Welcome to another deep dive edition of the Chicks on the Right podcast. Very excited because we have our gal pal with us today, Sara Carter, who's a Fox News contributor, host of the Sara Carter Show. And now she has just released a new documentary about the hellscape that has become our southern border. And I know there's going to be lots and lots of juicy goodness in this documentary. People are going to need to watch it. Sara, thank you so much for being with us. We cannot wait to hear about this documentary.
No, I'm so excited to be on with both of you. You know, I just love y'all. You're so great. And did you notice how I threw the y'all in there? I'm in Texas now, so I'm kind of just throwing it out there. My grandmother used to say it all the time. I know. And it's like coming back to me. But I absolutely adore both of you and the work that you do to bring truth and fun to like so many people across this country. Because this has been a tough couple of years. Really,
yeah.
It's been tough.
Mm-hmm.
It
has been. Yeah. So Dark Wars, is it when I'm trying to understand the format, is it a podcast that you're doing, like a couple different episodes of a podcast or an ongoing podcast, or is it a documentary? So what is the format exactly?
It's a docuseries, and the Dark Wars is the overall. And this is Dark Wars the Border. We're going to have about 10 episodes. I'm going to be taking you on the journey with me through the border. We've already debuted episode 1, and you know, people have just really been receptive to it. They loved it. We've been doing lots of interviews. People have been contacting me about it, emailing me about it, because what I want to do, I mean, I think this is an issue about all of us. This isn't a separate story. This is a story that affects every single American, every person that is being trafficked into this nation, the governments that are our allies and those that are our adversaries. It is an all-encompassing story, and it's really difficult for Americans to kind of grasp that. I mean, we're so busy. We're just moving along, you know, trying to pay the bills, go to the grocery store, get the kids to school, go to the PTA meeting. But what we don't realize is that that border really is not just the border. That nearly 2,000 miles of the U.S. southern border with Mexico is an area, granted, a lot of us know from watching shows like Narcos and everything, that it's an area that has been a fierce battle for many of the narco traffickers. And a lot of people don't ever really explain why. The reason that area is so vital to all of these nefarious groups is because they are the particular areas that feed into our nation. They are the veins, the highway systems that move the contraband and the illicit narcotics and the human trafficking throughout the United States. They're not fighting for access just to Texas, Arizona, California, or New Mexico. They are fighting over the highway systems that go into your communities, that bring with it now, unfortunately, counterfeit pills in the thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of fentanyl, which I believe is purposefully being used to poison our citizens. How can you say it's not when the DEA tests these pills that look like Percocet, that look like an Oxycontin, that look like an Adderall, and they are not?
Right. And when you hear that it's
kids.
Right. And when you hear it's the number one killer of people 18 to 44 in our country, and you're like, how can that not be like a national emergency? You know, I feel like there's only a few select people and maybe like one network, two networks that are talking about this, and you know, I mean, there's so many, like a small handful of people are talking about it. And that to me seems like you'd think the CDC would be talking about that. If that is the number one killer of people 18 to 44, you hear that and you're like, why are we not talking about this more? So, I mean, we're so grateful to people like you that are doing the work that you do to bring awareness and just show people this is what's going on. But I mean, I just feel like it's like people are screaming at the top of their lungs, but there's just not enough people doing it, you know?
Absolutely, Amy Jo. I mean, look, the issue is because it exposes the failure of our government and all levels of the government, right? And I'm not going to excuse anybody. I mean, I think it's been the worst it's ever been under Biden right now, because he removed all the executive orders that were under President Trump. He decided this is his administration's decision to be like, hey, come on in. We're wide open for business. And they're not allowing our law enforcement to do their job. But if the real attention was drawn to what is actually going on, it would just expose and unravel their just decades of lies. And in the last 2 years of lies, because this is a new phenomena. You know, these counterfeit pills are somewhat of a new phenomenon. When you talk to parents, I've talked to parents like Virginia Krieger, whose daughter Tiffany, you know, died after taking a Percocet. She had fallen through a front porch, you know, delivering some clothes, fallen through a front porch. Here's a beautiful girl, was a finalist twice on American Idol, you know, had at this point in time, she had 2 children in her 20s. She hurt her back, went to the hospital. They said, okay, it was during the time when people were a little bit more afraid, and they still are, of giving people Percocet or, you know, opioids for back pain. And she was in severe pain. And her best friend said, I've got a Percocet. I can give you one. Here, go ahead and take it.
God.
And it killed her. And it killed her because it had more than 2 milligrams of fentanyl in it, which is right now, the DEA was saying that what they've sequestered off the streets, I believe last year, over 40% of those pills had enough fentanyl in them to actually kill a grown man. So a young lady, you know, who weighs 115 pounds soaking wet or whatever, is going to definitely succumb to death with this if she doesn't get help fast. And that's what I want to do. I want people to understand that this series of episodes, in every single series that we're going to do, and we focus on China, I take you on a journey. I bring in the world's leading experts on all of these issues, but I'm on the ground with them. I'm at the border. You hear the border, you feel it. We take you on that journey. I take the listeners to El Salvador with me to talk to a human smuggler. I go into Guatemala and sit with the president and talk to him about what's happening. And I try to piece together a story that connects the dots for the American people, because we're smart. We know when things are going sideways. We know when we're being lied to. We may not have the time to read, you know, every book or know what's going on in every part of the world, but we care about each other. And I think that's why we're seeing people in droves heading to the, you know, early voting. But this series of stories is about saving American lives, about exposing corruption, and more importantly, about exposing the disinformation campaigns that our government has like literally shoved down our throats with lies. And I hope that when we shed light on this, you know, we can together change it so that we don't see this horror that we're seeing happening at the border happen anymore. Because it's not just our side, it's the humanitarian crisis too.
So Sarah, you've gone to the border like a ton of times, certainly more so than our VP who's in charge of it. And so with this
18
series,
years.
with this docuseries, like other than the fentanyl, when you go down and you are obviously meeting with, you know, prominent people that know the border inside out, you know the border inside and out. So after all the visits, after all that you've learned, like, what is your view about what should be done? Because you hear a lot of people say the wall won't work. People just tunnel under it or crawl over it. You know, what would work? What does our government need to actually do?
I think it's a multifaceted solution to the border. And I really believe it works like this. And this is 18 years of me going in and out of the border, in and out of, I'll be in Mexico this month. And I was in Guatemala. I think we've failed miserably on our foreign policy with our neighbors to our south. I think these are extraordinary nations with extraordinary resources, obviously a load of corruption. We've sent taxpayer dollars to no man's land over there. So I think here's what I would do. I would first start off with following the law. I would shut down the border. I would shut down the cartels. And that means I would give our law enforcement officials the tools that they need to enforce the law. Secondly, I would go after any company that hires illegals knowingly.
Yes.
And I would set an example. I would say, you know what? You can't just hire cheap labor. I mean, this is not the days of slavery, right? We are not supposed to be doing this. We are supposed, and legitimately, this is an issue that Americans have to deal with.
Yes.
We have to shut down those companies that are hiring illegals. We have to empower our law enforcement. We have to sit down and have direct talks with our neighbors to the south and say, if you want any help from the United States, which is what President Trump, I think, was doing and doing well at, this is what has to happen. This, and this. We will not allow you to take advantage of our system. We will not send money willy-nilly from the UN and from the United States taxpayers over to Central America unless we have a full accountability for that money and where it is going. Because I truly believe that money is landing in the pockets of a lot of NGOs that are, some of them are connected to the United States and friends of people in high places. They're pocketing that money and they're using that money to move more people to the United States.
Right.
And then they're recirculating that money. They're recirculating that money back into the U.S., into the pockets of candidates that are going to support them and support their NGOs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a vicious circle.
Totally.
And who pays for this? We pay for this as Americans. And then the poor people that are being trafficked by these cartels, and that's another part of the solution, I believe. I think we need to designate the most prominent cartels in Mexico. I really do. Terrorist organizations. If you are sending fentanyl and you are killing our citizens at the rate of 107,000 in 2021, 107,000 American citizens, that doesn't even include all the people, think about it, that have been damaged mentally, that have been put in hospitals, that are now psychotic because of the, behavioral issues that'll come from the use of fentanyl and these drugs. The cost of that to our nation and a generation that's going to be suffering because of that. I'm not saying every single cartel. I'm not saying we should use drones. I'm saying based on what I know is that we would have the tools, and I know the DEA won't agree with this completely because it buttresses into their budget. I think we need to stop in-house fighting on a bureaucratic level. And I think we need to find real solutions. And I think we need to set examples. I would take Nuevo Generacion, and I would take Sinaloa Cartel, and I would take La Familia, and anybody who's involved in moving weapons of mass destruction, which is fentanyl, or organ harvesting children's bodies, or anything that is that nefarious. And I would target them and say, your days are numbered. And I would tell the Mexican government, so sad, so bad, this is going to be a big fight and people will lose their lives, but it's going to end today. Because the Mexican people and the people of Central America and the people of the United States deserve better. We deserve better. And, but we're never going to resolve this if we keep doing the same exact thing over and over and over again. Matt, I know it sounds kind of harsh, but
it doesn't sound harsh.
Oh, it doesn't sound harsh. It doesn't sound harsh at all. It doesn't.
I guess not as harsh as Trump. He wants to just take everybody.
And the thing,
everybody who sells a drug, death penalty.
But the alternative is what we see, right? I mean, the alternative is doing nothing. And my God, the numbers, like the sheer numbers that I've heard so many just bouncing numbers. Like some people will say 2 million have crossed the border in 2 years. And then it's like 4 million. 5 million. I've heard so many numbers. I mean, what?
It's like
what
crazy.
Right. It's all over the place.
I don't think we really know. I don't think in all reality, anybody can say this is the exact number. What we do know
which is terrible.
Encounters. Yeah, exactly.
Which is awful. Yeah.
You're right. It is awful. We know that encounters are roughly now around 2.7 million. So 2.3 to 2. That means encounters. That doesn't mean that they necessarily were kicked back, that they were taken into custody. Look, people are being just released. So that's 2.7 million encounters. Now, since Biden. So, or maybe actually in the last year, because by the time Biden ends his term in office, what I have been told is it will be roughly around 5 million.
Oh my God. Insane.
And that's just encounters. That doesn't count the over 1 million known gotaways, which I believe is lowballing it. That means that, and a lot of people say, well, what does that mean, a gotaway? Like, how would they know? Well, a lot of times what you do is you go to the border and they have cameras set up all along the border and even on private land. So I'm friends with a lot of people that own ranches along the border. And when they don't apprehend them, sometimes what they'll do is they say, oh, last night we see a group on this video camera. It's about 50 or 300 or 20 that made their way to this highway, to Highway 91. And so now they're counting those people as people that just got away, that came into the country and got away. Think about it, though. They got over 90 people connected to the FBI's terror watch list that they encountered. Mm-hmm. What about the ones that with a lot of money that are asking the high level cartels to protect them, to bring them all the way in? And by the way, blackmail happens on both sides of the border. So when you think of a cartel, think of a massive organization. That's the only way I can describe it to people. Think of it like a massive organization like Walmart or something with distribution centers. My friend Chris Farrell used Walmart once, and I thought it was brilliant. With distribution centers across the United States and in Mexico, with hundreds of billions of dollars in trafficking, narcotics, and contraband. They own people in the Mexican government. They own people in Central America. They own people in the United States. And we just sit back, this administration right now in particular, and allow them to make more and more money. And what about the lives of all those children? I mean, I know your listeners are moms and dads, and they've got to care.
Right.
You know, these are kids. If I told you that children were being brutally raped as young as 20 months old, that I know of for a fact. How could that be okay with anyone?
Right. This is the stuff. I mean, the justice system should be targeting this stuff as opposed to going after moms and dads who are concerned about their schools. Right.
We need IRS moms and agents. Dads we need 87,000 IRS agents.
Gotta have those.
To hunt me down. To hunt me down in my Dark Wars podcast. Because remember, that's what happened under Lois Lerner. I mean, if you were conservative, if you're conservative, they were going to drop the hammer on you. We know that for a fact. Mm-hmm. And under Obama, all the journalists that were being spied on. And now, by the way, which is surprising that journalists loved him so much. When they were spying on the Associated Press, they were spying on James Rosen. I'm just like, wow. And now you said it with the parents who are fighting for their children's right to be educated without being brainwashed. I mean, that just sounds like the American dream to me.
It's just unbelievable. It's just,
have you met Mayorkas? I'm just curious. Have you met him?
Oh, no, but I think he doesn't like me at all. I have not met him.
He doesn't.
I've met a lot of...
you guys are a little different, Sarah.
Well, yeah, he's a different kind of Cuban. He is more like the Fidel Cuban. That I'm just like, I can't believe that this man is even still the head. I just can't believe it. I mean,
it's unreal.
It is unreal. Yeah.
Well, can't he resign? I mean, he's lying, like straight up lies, right? This is what I want people to know. The Dark Wars podcast, we will not lie to you. We'll give you, all the truth, because listen to what he says. I love this opening with Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul doesn't, we open our podcast with it, but it's basically like how he tells government officials, like, you want to run an organization. Remember when the Biden administration was tossing around on the back end, like the Ministry of Disinformation? Remember that? Like, we're going to be in charge of what you guys should know. And Senator Rand Paul is like, the government is the biggest distributor of lies. Like, why would we want you in charge? Well, that's Mayorkas.
He said the border is secure. I mean, this is
then why doesn't he just go down there and cross it and go have some coffee in Nuevo Laredo?
They should listen. All of them should go down there. Kamala, Joe,
they should just Kamala. No bulletproof cars. Just go down there. Take a little. I have a car they can borrow. They can borrow a little.
A convertible. They should go down to
a convertible. A convertible. They
a
should
little electric one. A little electric convertible. Just like buzz on down there. That's what they should do.
I know exactly where they can go too. It's where all these fun guys who have these fun guns spin around and do donuts right across the border. So like they're showing off, and it's always like, Oh yeah. It's an awesome show. I'll drink some tequila with them. Could you imagine me, Kamala?
Oh my God, I would love it. I want to see that on film.
Yeah, Biden and Mayorkas. Yes. We could take shots every time they do a donut and shoot their gun in the air.
I freaking love that.
And then I want there to be video of you asking Kamala, hey, what are those root causes of migration?
Yeah.
Have you figured that one out yet?
Yeah, where are the
absolutely useless moron?
Right. Thank you so much for saying that. Because the root cause is us. The fault is us. I'm not going to, and of course there's corrupt. We can only deal with what we can control, right? Isn't that what everybody tells us? Even like in therapy, right? You can only deal with what you can control. You can't control other people. Okay, well then let's control it. Let's just, it's just common sense, stupid, right? It's like, that's what I tell myself. It's just, don't try to complicate things. It's just common sense. And I mean, it's all about saying, okay, we have a situation and we have a crisis. What am I in control of? What can I do to help stop this, right? And that's what we got to do. And for some reason, that concept is like a bewilderment to this administration.
It really is.
Unless, like a lot of people say, and I agree with them, and I believe this is their policy. I
think it's by design.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I would like to say that maybe it's like a thing like bad parenting where they just don't want to parent the kid and the kid is just run amok. But I honestly think though, there's a huge part of me that they want this to happen. They want to destroy us from within. Because if you look at all the other policies they have, all the other policies suck too. And they're also destroying us. And so this just falls right in line with the destruction, And so I just can't. I don't know why they want to do it, but they are, Sarah. So
it's some kind of weird ideology. They're like embarrassed of being patriots. They're embarrassed of our freedom and our ability to be exceptional. It's like they flog themselves over it. I picture like movies like where people are punishing themselves. I feel like the entire Obama administration and the Biden administration and people that are so far to the left really believe in their heart that we are the problem. We're not the problem. We're the solution. We're the solution. We're the beacon on a shining hill, which is the reason why people don't go flocking to China and Russia for freedom. They come here, which is the reason. Which is the reason why 1,700 people crossed through the Normandy entry area out here in Eagle Pass last night. In one little section, 1,700 people came across the border.
Yeah. That's the bleeding hearts will then say, well, see, people want to come here. We need to welcome them because they're just looking for a better life. And I'm like, how many people are we? The whole world wants to come here.
And there's a limit. And you tell them, not only is there a limit, but people are actually dying and being killed by these cartels. And we are financing the world's most dangerous organizations by allowing this to happen. This is like, we are the human traffickers. That's what a lot of Border Patrol agents are saying. I feel like I'm a human trafficker because I bring them in, I process them, and I let them go. And then we even give them airfare. So we're just perpetuating the horrors that these people are going through. How do we fix this? If you really care, I speak Spanish. My mother was an immigrant. She came on the Johnson Freedom flights. I know what it's like. I know how hard it is for immigrants. First, especially people that first come here and have to start a whole new life. Then we do it the right way. We follow the law and then we reform immigration if we have to. If we have to expand it, if we have to do better worker visas, whatever we do. But we do it so that we benefit first. And that will benefit all of our neighbors in the Western Hemisphere. The Western Hemisphere right now, for Americans who aren't paying attention to this, is one of the scariest places right now because the Chinese are all over Central America. Believe it or not, China is all over the place there. We've got Russians doing drills in Venezuela with Maduro. Colombia has just shifted, and they say the president there is like, I'm no longer eradicating cocaine. Because it'll damage, quote unquote, our tropical forests, the Amazon. So he's giving back control to the new rise of the new cocaine mega, I guess you want to call mega cartels. We have Nicaragua shifting to the left. We've seen what's happened all across other places like Bolivia, Chile. And there's a concern right now that we're going to be surrounded by the enemy. I mean, if we don't support our allies, and by the way, this administration, the State Department, they really back leftist regimes there. It's like crazy. Yep. But when you talk to sources on the ground there, they want nothing to do with conservative regimes in those regions. They destroy them publicly, you know, as far as like, you know, targeting them and saying that these, you know, if you're a conservative there, you're basically like the worst thing that's ever happened to that country. And like with Lula right now, who was elected in Brazil, barely won. You could see the uprising of the people in Brazil surrounding the presidential palace. Lula was a criminal. This is his third time in office. He was a criminal. He's a leftist. So, I mean, personally, I would want to be surrounded by friends, not by enemies. So when, you know, when I go back to like the things that I would do, I mean, that's got to be a part of what any new administration does. They really have to focus on, you know, implementing the laws again, maybe revamping our immigration posture. Because I want people. I love people. Yeah. I want everybody. You want to come from Italy? I love it. I love traveling through America and like the wonderful spices and foods, and that we can like eat at a Middle Eastern restaurant just as easily as I can go to a Chinese restaurant or pick up some Mexican food or, you know, good old American, whatever that is, bland British food, I guess you can say. on days where I feel bland, you know, but it's like, we really do have so much to be grateful for. And, but we won't survive if we stay asleep at the wheel. We will. Right. No nation in history of the world, and we're still a young nation, has ever survived that has allowed that nation's borders to be broken, its foundation to be fractured. And, you know, and especially if we're not paying attention to what's going on around us, because we just assume everything's going to be perfect. It doesn't mean it will. I don't know. I think COVID and everything else taught us that, you know, that we really are fragile. And that,
Sarah, where can people watch and take part in looking at the documentary, listening to the podcast?
Well, I'm really excited. They can go to Dark Wars Pod. That's DARK Wars, WARS pod, POD.com. You can also get it at Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But if they go to darkwarspod.com, they can sign up there and get a subscription, and we'll make sure to get those episodes out to them ASAP.
Awesome.